All right, so part two. Uh, let's get into this. Part two of financial health, right? Okay. So, uh, let's just do a quick little recap, right? Or summary. So number one is you want to figure out your runway, right? So that's per month, or sorry, number of months, right? Then number two, you want to figure out. Here we go. Two. Two, you want to figure out your safety, your safety buckets, right? And then three, I'm going to start getting into some things that are not so obvious. But number three is going to be your investments, right? Three completely different mindsets for each one of those. But let's focus on safety buckets for now, right? So safety buckets are going to include things like, actually, this is your savings, right? So that's just cash that sits there in the actual bank account, and you could have potentially like 6 months, let's say, right? But then when we start talking about safety buckets, that's going to be assets that may not be liquid. So let's just look at some examples, right? So that maybe aren't liquid. It's waves, right? Waves. So let's take a look at a few, right? There's a house. There's a better looking version of a house here, right? So you could own your house outright. And of course, the mortgage, right? The mortgage is a liability, and the expenses are cost. But at the same time, you own your property and you don't pay rent, and this might be something that makes you feel and give you a sense of safety, right, or security. So that's one asset. Second asset might be, let's say, gold, right? Gold isn't 100% liquid, but what it could be is it could be an incredible kind of flight to safety sort of thing. So it's an alternate, right? Alternative currency, right? You wouldn't go around the streets, shaving off pieces of gold and buying, fruits and vegetables in the apocalypse. But what you might do is you might keep it just in case something happens to banks, right? So you're like, oh, there's a run on banks, so there's huge bank holidays because the government's freaking out about something, or a number of different things. But different people have a different sensibility for this in different countries. Like, for instance, in India, gold is huge because they know that what their banks have done to them during times of uncertainty, right? So anyway, so it might give some people some alternative options for a safety item, right? Next up is going to be crypto, right? So you could have Bitcoin in particular, and you could have it on a cold storage device, right? Cold storage is the same thing as gold, meaning it's going to be self-custody, right? Self-custody, which is rare, right? There's few things that you can truly hold in self-custody. And despite your opinions of maybe volatility or whatever it is in the kind of Bitcoin, argue sphere, regardless, the asset can be a self-custody item in cold storage, right? So if you had to leave in an emergency, you could bring it with you, no problem. Other assets, those might be precious metals. This might also be scarce items like art, right? So essentially, illiquid things that maybe preserve value in a different way than cash, right? Versus cash. Okay. Cool. So this is the safety bucket version. You could probably also put more cash in there, right? It's possible too. But these are just some smaller examples, right? So safety bucket, really important to understand that that's separate from your short-term savings and spending, spending, right? So this is almost like emergency cash, right? And then we'll start getting into investing, which is going to be an entirely different focus. So again, this is going to be part 2, right? Next up is going to be part 3.